On a chilly autumn morning, Victoria sat at a corner cafe in Paris drinking coffee, her ride 15 minutes late. Suddenly, the new convertible car she'd been expecting roared down the avenue before parking illegally in front of her small table. A man got out of the black polished car. The cool air rushing past him as he drove still swirled around his face. His smile illuminated white teeth, and he wore a matching all-white outfit, making him look like a sailor.
What do you think?
He said in English, looking directly at Victoria.
I'm sorry, are you my ride? You're a little late and it's a little cold.
She said, ready to apologize if this man was in fact a perfect stranger.
Yes, Victoria. I'm your ride to the lake house. It should warm up soon. Good weather, I'm afraid.
He smiled again and lit a cigarette.
James Davenport, we meet at last. Nicholas speaks well of you and would stop at nothing to have me join your writing group. How did you know it was me? You left Oxford before I attended.
I've seen your picture before in Cherwell.
That old rag.
Victoria blushed, thinking of this man reading her column in the student paper.
Is this your new car?
It is indeed a 1958 MGA. It went directly from the English assembly line to the shipyard. Just picked it up at the dock earlier this week. I've been driving ever since. If it's too cold, we can put the top up. It has a heater.
Please, I'm shivering.
After pausing to admire the MGA's curves, Victoria made an effort to repair their rough start.
It's a lovely car. I'm happy to go to Lake Geneva with you.
Splendid,
exclaimed James to cement their new friendship. Victoria leaned from the excitement in his voice. She then added,
I've got to pay my bill inside before we go.
Sounds good, Victoria.
James replied firmly.
Go ahead and get settled up inside. I'll put the top up. If it gets warmer later, we can put it back down. Didn't think about the cool air, even though it is autumn. I've been so excited to get a new car.
I'd be excited to get a new car too. All is forgiven. When do you think we'll arrive at Nicholas's new place in Lake Geneva?
We should arrive at the lake house sometime after dark. Of course, I've never been there before.
I'll pray for us both,
Victoria stated gravely. She got up from the table to go inside the cafe in order to pay the bill. Café de Flore. Inside, Victoria stood at a payphone listening to the line ring. She could see James outside through the cafe window putting the top up on the new 1958 MGA. Finally, a voice answered.
Hello,
said her sometimes boyfriend Mendoza with an obvious hangover. Only she felt good that he'd picked up because his band Tortillas de Pelo were touring Europe, hopping from hotel to hotel. He could have been anywhere.
Mendoza, it's me. I'm leaving Paris for Lake Geneva. I'm getting a ride from James Davenport to the writing retreat. He's Oxford alumni, remember?
Victoria.
Mendoza said, awaking from his tomb.
That's great. Glad you called. We're going to be a little south of you in St. Judas playing a gig. It's near Turin.
That sounds terrific. I've always wanted to go to Italy.
Victoria gushed as a groupie of the band.
If you get bored, you should join us there. It's not too far away. We'll be there all weekend. I'd really like to see you.
Mendoza insinuated.
Me too, Mendoza. Me too.
Victoria melted. Before leaving, Victoria had James take the car top down. They arrived at the lake house after midnight, frightening guests who had already gone to sleep. Lake Geneva Manor? In the morning, Nicholas stood in his drawing room with complete command over his audience. In the windows behind him, slanted sunlight radiated the clear water of Lake Geneva in the distance. In the spirit of the haunted summer of 1816, he'd invited this crew of Oxford writing alumni to rejoice in his success after signing a lucrative book deal with a major publishing house for his horror stories. They could now marvel at the impact of his storytelling, and so Nicholas began.
It's been more than 142 years since Percy Bysshe Shelley penned his first draft of Frankenstein here along these shores. Now we have the chance to do the same today. While I've just discovered literary stardom, I'd like to share this wealth with my friends, so I'm now offering you all a chance to become the next lost generation. Let this weekend become the start of a new movement. What shall we be remembered for?
Thanks, genius. Your best-selling book is mostly non-fiction. Tragedy in World War II turned ghost story. What are we supposed to write about?
James said bluntly, after a good night's sleep and scotch to bring in a new day. They were all good friends, so this comment made most of the writers gathered in the drawing room laugh.
Glad you asked, old sport. As our leader, I've pondered this same question. I've devised we should become the writers who blend non-fiction with fiction. Even Frankenstein used science. Now for a prompt, I'll tell you all the secret of this manor.
Nicholas added a dramatic pause before he continued.
It's said that a Nazi general still technically owns the house. He's wanted for war crimes in connection to the death camps. A team of Israeli investigators tracking him down told me this story personally. Supposedly, he's been spotted in the area. It's said he might even live here now, only as a ghost.
Nicholas let out a boisterous laugh. Victoria got goosebumps. At that moment, she wanted to leave for Italy. Only it would take a little time to free herself from this place.
You're putting us on, right?
James commented again to the delight of all in attendance. The manor's grounds could conceal a person who wanted to hide, making the narrative unsettling.
I'm afraid it is true, James. Only think of what I'm offering you all. I've just scored an international bestseller. My book has sold enough copies to afford this manor. I've invited you all here to my new home in the hopes of giving you a writing prompt to promote your careers. Our careers, James.
You bought this manor?
Victoria asked in the dumb silence.
Yes, I got a good deal on this lake house because of the story. The story, Victoria. We're all here to write stories just like they did in 1816. Isn't that exciting?
Nicholas showed a desperation for approval.
Yes, Nicholas, it's very exciting. I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say how deeply grateful we must feel for this opportunity,
Victoria said. Nicholas, relieved of nervous tension, gazed upon the room, his subjects now experiencing mass hypnosis. They would take the writing prompt to create something spectacular if fate allowed. Victoria's story. Tortillas de Pelo's band bus cruised through St. Judas during the twilight hour. The streets were empty. Not a soul stirred for the meat festival. In the center of the village sat a Gothic beer hall. Tortillas de Pelo would be playing their final gig there.
Where the hell is everybody?
Asked Tio Billy half to himself.
I don't know. They paid us a bunch of money. Otherwise, I'd say let's get the hell out of here,
said Mendoza. Treculos burped and laughed, only no one else joined in the fun.
Keep the van running, Tio,
said Machete. The band Tortillas de Pelo sat in the bus trying to stay warm with the heater on and the engine running. It didn't take long before the sun went down. Then, as if on cue, the streets were crowded with young, beautiful people all dressed in black. A white fist knocked on the window. Tio Billy rolled the window down to a handsome face greeting him.
You must be the band. Perfect timing. My name's Constantine. I'm the mayor of St. Judas. Are you Mendoza? We spoke on the phone.
No, I'm Tio Billy, he's Mendoza.
Tio Billy said, pointing to the passenger seat.
Hi, Constantine. We've had a long drive and enjoyed the adventure. We're ready to rock this place. Where do we set up?
Okay, rock and roll. Let's go. Just follow me,
said Constantine. A while later, Tortillas de Pelo killed it as they played music on stage inside a Gothic beer hall. Inspiration from the sensation of the crowd as alcohol flowed through their veins. Lights danced in the room on smoke from a machine. Mendoza, Treculos, Machete, and Tio Billy all felt euphoric, wishing for a never-ending gig with midnight drawing near. They continued their rock and roll symphony until Constantine signaled for them to take a break. He then took to the stage to make an announcement.
Are these guys great or what? Everyone, give it up for Tortillas de Pelo.
Constantine yelled into the microphone. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. When it died down, the mayor of St. Judas continued.
We must now celebrate the meat festival in a time-honored tradition. So without much ado, the moment we've all been waiting for. The reenactment of the crucifixion of Judas.
The crowd erupted. Even the band gave a cheer. Yet Mendoza seemed puzzled and asked Constantine.
Don't you mean Jesus?
Constantine laughed while the audience got quiet.
Jesus didn't get crucified. Judas did. I know because I was there.
And Constantine smiled, revealing his devilish white fangs. Tortillas de Pelo cried out in pain after each member of the band had been nailed to a cross. The vampires reveled in the moment as they got drunk on alcohol-infused blood. Back to reality. In the sitting room, Victoria stopped writing to look at Lake Geneva through the windows, her stomach touching the carpet with her legs bent behind her, a pen in hand as she'd just jotted down words on paper. All around her, fellow Oxford grads wrote in notebooks with the thought of literary fame. Only Victoria wanted to go now. Her short story completed, leading to memories of Mendoza. Fun nights of drinking beer in a dance hall and smoking cigarettes in an alley while kissing under moonlight. She might be just a journalist, yet she'd never felt the need to be anything more. Let James win this damn contest. She had a dowry. Tortillas de Pelo just needed a #1 hit song. Then they all heard a muffled crash. The psychic energy of so many writers collected together, creating something terrible to satisfy the demands of Nicholas's writing prompt for an epic horror story. Nicholas stood up first and made his way to another part of the house. James followed suit along with all the men. The women were slower to respond. Victoria, the last to leave her position, went to investigate the cause of the disturbance one of them might have imagined. Down the hall in the kitchen, Nicholas stood listening in front of the pantry door, everyone else tilting their heads in his direction for a better understanding of the macabre scene. Nicholas then turned the doorknob. As the door opened, a hand flashed through with a knife stabbing into the belly of Nicholas. Blood stained his white buttoned shirt. His eyes rolled back in his head, capturing an image from a silent movie Victoria remembered from her youth. Then the door burst open, revealing an old, sturdy man with one suspender holding up his military-issued pants. This time, he slashed a knife through the left shoulder of James, forcing him to stagger backward. Red blood traced the line of the blade oozing out onto the black and white tiled floor. James fought back, stepping forward to deliver a right cross. Then the mob of men tackled him to the kitchen floor. The knife wrestled from his hand, landing safely out of reach inside the pantry. The former Nazi general they'd all been warned of, now taken into their custody.
Go, Victoria. The keys to the MG are in the car. Go get us some help now,
yelled James Davenport. The columnist, finding herself in a breaking news story, sprinted away from this murderous affair. Outside, the relief of mountain air, along with the realization she'd been in the presence of death stench. It clung to her clothes. She didn't know what could be the cause of the odor of something dead for so long. Victoria, unable to find a door handle, jumped into the wet seat of the convertible MG. She could no longer make sense of things in her rush. Luckily, the keys were in the ignition. The car revved to life in the mist. Victoria then sped away along the driveway. On the fresh, damp surface of the road, Victoria skidded into the steel barrier of a bridge after taking a corner too fast. Victoria looked up at the cloudy gray sky before blood from the steering wheel wound on her forehead forced her to close her eyes. The new car completely totaled. The end.
Yeah.